Thanks everyone for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about cultivating an intentional online case experience. So as everyone has moved to operating more remotely, that's really never going away is what we're learning. So it's a matter of finding that balance between offering services to your defendants and your parties online versus having them come into the office traditionally. So we're going to talk about some things that we have learned over the last few years and some statistics that we can share with you and even some best practices, okay? So I am Amanda Shido. I am a senior product manager at Tyler Technologies. Yes, we are a vendor. I will not bore you with demonstrations today though. So I have been working in the public space for almost 25 years. That may date me, don't do any math please. But I've worked at Tyler for about 16 years, both in municipal court products and county and state products. And before that, I was a client. I worked for a municipal court for 9 years. So some of this that I'm sharing with you today is personal experience and some just from some of the studies that we've done at Tyler. So the big themes, of course, are increasing access to justice, right? Any technology that you use is going to help you do that. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, ways to do that. When you increase access to justice, you often can improve compliance rates. So I'm going to talk to you about some things that we've seen some courts do and give you some numbers on how it has improved their compliance rates. And the other thing is when you're strategically using tools that work together for your courts and your defendants, you're able to reduce the workload. So everything that we talk about really accomplishes all three of those things. If we wanted to play a game, you could count the number of times I say those words, but that might get boring. So at Tyler, we are dedicated to collaborating with clients all over the country. So our tools were built for courts with defendants in mind, at least the ones I'm talking about today. Many of you know we have many other products that cater to other parties, but I'm going to focus today mostly on defendants. Our products were developed through collaboration with courts of varying sizes across the country, and we've been able to ensure that it meets reliability and that these products are easy to use by defendants who just frankly don't have a lot of experience dealing with the court. Most of the people get a traffic ticket, and maybe that's their first time, hopefully that's their first time interacting with the court. So through the years of working with courts, we have gathered some information that I'm going to share today. We've compiled not only the tools necessary, but the strategic knowledge to help the courts use the tools effectively, so that you can guide your defendant's experience online just the way you do in person. A lot of time and money goes into courtroom operations and signs and workflows and business processes to get people in and out. You all need that same control when you're designing your online case experience. Okay, so this is usually where the story starts. You get pulled over, maybe in the middle of nowhere, back road, off a highway, and it's your first ticket, and maybe you're 38. I don't know, has that happened to anybody else but me? Now, thankfully, I work with the courts and have for years, so I knew I was going to pay my ticket the easiest way possible because I didn't want to see a judge because, yes, I was speeding. It was an accident. It always is, but immediately I knew I was going to pay that ticket online. And the officer gave me all the information I needed. It wasn't on my ticket, but he said, if you go here and you pay this before this day, here's the amount you'll pay, and it won't go on your driving record. And I said, ooh, okay, I'm not going to ask any more questions. I'm going to let you go so you can get off the side of the road. And more importantly, I needed to get off the side of the road because my 18-year-old daughter was making fun of me in the driver's seat, or the passenger seat, rather. Having experience with the courts, I didn't have a struggle in actually completing that transaction. But what if I didn't have that experience with the courts and I wasn't familiar with the court system, had never received a ticket, and that officer didn't have the time to spend with me on the side of the road that day telling me what website to go to, how much I should pay, when I should pay it by, and ask me if I had any other questions. It was a really small town, so he may have had time, but I don't think that that's the normal situation these days. So what if you could give people the ability to get more information right away? What if you could reach people in the most convenient ways that they are comfortable with so that they understand their next steps in doing business with your court, hopefully not having to go to the court office. I got my ticket a few hours away from home. I did not want to have to drive back and take care of it in person. So what if you could have a QR code on the citation that the defendant could scan and it could take them to an FAQs page, or even better, some way to online resolve their ticket. Things like that are what we're going to be talking about today, and I have a new love for the QR code. So who likes QR codes? I love them. Who liked them 10 years ago? Nope, I ignored them 10 years ago. I was like, oh geez, I'm not doing that. And every time I would go to scan it, I took a picture. I don't know if anybody else did that. I've finally broken that habit, but it took about maybe it was a year ago. So I'm not going to say I was too good of an early adopter on that. But now I love them, from looking at the dinner menu restaurant or at restaurants, or even on the back of a truck driving down the road. I've caught myself capturing them just to see what is out there. And then even that Super Bowl commercial, I think last year. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Who knows when the QR code was created? I did some math here and I wasn't happy about it. It was created in 1994, so it's 29 years old. So it's just now come to maturity, I think, where we all know how to use them, and they are so handy at providing you the information that you want at your fingertips. It's just a matter of convenience now, and it's one that I personally didn't appreciate until about a year and a half ago. Let's see. So the QR codes are easy to use. Everyone knows how to use them these days. Once upon a time you had to have an app. Now you can just use your camera, and they're free to create. So if you're working with vendors that can generate QR codes for you or help you put those on forms, those are just many of the ways that you can use those. And so we're going to show you a few other ways. So there's a few different types of QR codes. There's a static QR code that can just take people to like an FAQs page or your court's homepage. There's also dynamic QR codes that maybe your e-citation vendor can generate for you on your tickets. Who here still writes paper tickets or still processes paper tickets? Okay, guess what? You can get a static QR code printed on those paper tickets if you have any control at all in the ticket process there. For those of you using e-citations, though, your vendor may be able to create a dynamic QR code. That dynamic QR code could potentially take the defendant to their case directly if you have some online applications that allow that. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. So who's using QR codes already in your court? Awesome.
Not on tickets.
Not on tickets?
I use them on notices.
Okay, you use them on notices. Who uses them on tickets? You guys do? Awesome. Not dynamic, okay.
Require a lot more interaction with our case management system.
Yeah, so the comment there for those of you at home is that they currently use QR codes on their e-citations, but they're static QR codes today. So,
Paper citation.
oh, sorry, paper citations. I heard you, I swear. Oh, let's see. So the QR codes are very beneficial in getting people to your websites to get the information. But some other ways that you can use them is actually in your lobby. Do any of you, let's see, how many of you allow cell phones in the courtroom or in the court building? How many of you don't allow them? No one. Okay. Well, I recently met with some courts, and they actually don't allow people to bring their phones into the courtroom, and I just thought, wow, that would be hard. That's a little different than not taking them into the classroom, I think. But for the courts that do allow people to bring their phones in, some strategic placement of QR codes and some subtle advertisement around the building may help people understand that they don't have to wait in line. Depending on the tool set that you have attached to that QR code, they may be able to resolve their ticket or finish the resolution of their ticket online. So placing them around your cashier stations or as they come in. Additionally, Other places that you can place them is around the community, so in the libraries or the community center or even in the jails. So if you're looking for ways to meet your defendants and share with them the convenience that you offer in dealing with those court cases, those are just some ideas of where to place them. Let's see, I also saw, and this is interesting, so I'll share it. I actually saw court advertising on Pinterest. So I may be the only person that looks up stuff like that on Pinterest, but QR codes are a fascination, and court interactions are for me as well. Okay, so how about texting defendants? How many of you text defendants? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. Do you have those text messages sent automatically from your systems? Perfect. No? Okay, so a little bit of a mixture there. For those of you that your systems are automatically sending them, does it record the data back to the case or to the party? Yeah? Awesome. How many of you are emailing people still? Yeah? Does it work well? Sort of. So I learned something. So the comment was that we don't think the attorneys are able to look at all of the emails they receive, and I'm just going to be honest and say I have a hard time looking at all of the emails that I receive. And if people looked at my personal email and saw all of the unread messages, that might break some friendships. I have some friends that care about that. Did you know that on average it takes a person 90 seconds to respond to a text message, though? Like, I don't know about you all, but I have, at least as of the time I started this class, I had 0 unread text messages. Now, I might not have put a lot of thought into checking it. I might have just kind of looked and said, okay, I'll come back to that later. But I opened it. And that's not how I treat email. And I think that's how studies have shown people don't respond as much to email anymore. So the response rates to text messages that get sent by marketing departments is actually 7.5% higher than email, with a response rate of 45% versus the email response rate of 6%. So even marketing campaigns are more successful through text. And if you think about it, a lot of times when you're trying to get information out to your courts and increase access to justice and transparency, that's what you're doing. You're marketing to those defendants or those parties. You're letting them know about services the court offers or how to interact with your courts better. So another stat to prove my point about the number of unread text messages, 82% of people open every text they receive. So, who here opens every text you receive? Yeah, pretty much. I'm going to consider that everybody here. So, what if you could text that important information to the defendant to communicate with them? What would it look like if in that text message they had a link back to a website to automatically make their payments or resolve their cases online? So, for those of you sending text messages today, are you putting marketing information in the text message, like a link to look up their case or resolve their case, or is it more like reminders? Reminders? Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about reminders too and how that helps with increasing compliance. But we're going to talk a lot about what you put in the text messages and when to send those text messages that even further helps with those compliance rates and reduces the courtroom workload. So what if instead of coming to court at all, like we talked about earlier in the QR codes, that the QR code or a link in a text message could be sent, again, to take them directly to frequently asked questions if that's all you have, an online payment portal if that's all you have, maybe an integrated payment and case search system if that's what you have. Again, just increasing that ease of use for those defendants so that they can view their violations and view the case status even, see how much they owe or proposed fines and costs, enter their plea, and actually resolve their case online in a way where it automatically interacts with your case management system and makes all of those updates. So a lot of the tools and the stats that I'll be talking about are using things that are integrated to the case management system, and they are automatically disposing of the cases after they've pre-qualified the cases for online resolution. Okay, so a lot of efficiencies with an integrated system. One that's purposely built for the justice system. So when courts use separate tools to facilitate sending text messages or notifications, maybe a separate tool to allow payments online or allow other traffic options, the defendant experience can be disjointed. It can make it hard to understand what to do where, and just make it difficult for them to navigate your online system, where you've spent a lot of time and resources making it easy for the defendants to navigate your courtroom buildings. That's where now that focus needs to be on refining and implementing changes so that your courts can respond and give the defendants the ability to resolve those tickets, again, online, just the way they can in person today. So as you look to cultivate your court's online experience, look for a suite of tools and establish best practices that work together strategically to help you manage the life cycle of the ticket. Tools that provide a consistent user experience, consistent look and feel for potentially your own court websites. So being able to port your banner, and you have the ability to configure the verbiage yourself and design your payment forms so that it matches that experience that you want your court constituents and your defendants to have. So we're going to talk about engagement and accessibility tools. So reminding defendants of important dates and times. So we have some folks that are already doing that, whether that is hearing reminders, payment reminders, reminders about their upcoming pay or appear by date if it's an initial arraignment. So having the ability to send the text message reminders out to their defendants is a key piece of increasing the accessibility, the transparency, and just reminding people. I get a reminder about my dentist appointment, my doctor's appointments, and everything. And these days, if I didn't have those reminders, I would be in trouble. So pretty cool that our courts are able to do that today. And so one thing you might say is, like, how do you start sending text messages out? How do you all get phone numbers today? Cell phone numbers. Is that hard for you all? Seems like maybe nobody gets them. Or maybe only when they've come to court, right? Yeah.
And they have to agree to accept the text messages.
They do, yeah. And so they're coming in person or calling you on the phone, and they're verbally or in person agreeing to receive text messages from you. Yeah, so what we've seen is a lot of our courts will partner, one, with the police officers to get the cell phone number at the time of the stop. It's a pretty easy thing to get if the officers are telling them the benefits they'll get with that. That's what we've heard reported from our courts. Sometimes that's hard to do. So some of the online applications that we have will actually collect the defendant's phone number for you, so that if they get a ticket later or if they sign up for a payment plan, you already have that information on file, and those text message jobs can automatically remind them. Additionally, if they get a ticket in the future, you already have that in there. And it is important that your text tool, once you have the number, can send an opt-out and opt-in message where the defendants can control that, again, in a way where they don't have to come to the court to do that, or they don't have to make a phone call that ties up your staff's resources. And being able to schedule the automatic text message reminders, we're going to talk about some frequencies that we have studied that have been the ones that have been proven to increase compliance. How many of you that are sending text messages are able to schedule those on a recurrence, or do you have to go out and push those text messages when you want them to go? On a recurrence? That's awesome. How often do you send the text messages? In general. Once a week?
Try to be mindful that on the clock, because the system doesn't distinguish if something's already been sent out. So if somebody's got a reminder for a hearing date a month out or 2 months out, I don't want it to, it's going to send it every week until
Yeah.
the hearing date comes up.
Yeah.
So I just try to be mindful of people's data rates and things. So right now, I've just been testing it once a week. Haven't gotten any complaints so
Okay.
far.
Awesome, awesome. So for those at home, she is sending them about once a week, but she is being mindful of the people who have a lot of recurring things coming up so that they don't get overloaded with text messages. But so far that's working well, right? Is that payment reminders or hearing reminders or both?
We have both set up.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so the big importance in saving time for the courts, of course, is having the ability to schedule those text message campaigns. So really like you set it and forget it. You set it and forget it, it goes out and it records that information back to your case management system. In those text messages, it should give the defendant the ability to understand how they can pay their ticket. So whether that is a link, again, that takes them to a site that they can pay by text, or a phone number in the text message or contact information. So utilizing interactive voice response to take payments over the phone. That's actually my next slide. And I don't know about you all. I don't pay for anything over the phone anymore. Who still pays for things over the phone? Okay, I hope that would be the answer. So my mom, though, she will only pay for things by the phone, whether she's talking to someone over the phone or she's called an automated system, because that's the technology that she is most comfortable with. She is convinced that every time she uses her credit card or debit card, purchasing anything online, it gets compromised. But she's perfectly fine with doing the same thing over the phone. So if you have solutions that can use your same online business rules for interacting and paying their cases online, that can allow them to also pay their cases over the phone, you may be able to increase the online processing that you get, even though they're accessing it via the phone, if that makes sense. How many of you use IVR or have phone payments? Couple? Awesome. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but another important thing, which I think a lot of people are doing, for quite a while before COVID, is e-filing options. And so whether that is mandatory e-filing for attorneys, permissive e-filing for attorneys, and even the use of a tool that allows pro se filers to interact with the court and file their cases. So that's a big aspect of it. We are focusing a little bit more on defendants, but that's a great way to increase access to justice in filing cases and responding to them online. Again, resolving traffic disputes online, so whether that's an automated system or a way that your defendants can work out a plea deal online. Is anyone doing anything like that today? Awesome. I really want you to have a microphone so you can share. Anthony, will you take this back there? Thank you. I would walk back there, but I think I'm supposed to stay up here for the streaming. Okay, so tell me what you're allowing right now for defendants to be able to get a plea deal online. Uh-oh, sorry.
So we have multiple electronic forms online, few different options. One, a defendant can choose to request their hearing online, keep people from having to fill out an envelope, put a stamp on it, put it in the mail, not know if it reaches the court.
Yeah.
So they can request their mitigation contested or even a deferred finding online, and they get an automatic confirmation response that it was submitted, and it goes into the court's generic email account, and then we process it as if they would have mailed it in.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two is we handle it like a hearing by mail option, but it's a digital form. They fill out the form as if they were to fill out a statement. It tells them what rights they have. They forfeit any appeal rights if they do it that way, like as if they were to submit a hearing by mail. And then it goes on an ex parte calendar. The judge makes a decision. If they decide that they want a response by email, we send them the order by email or we mail it. And it's worked out quite well. We also started doing jury summons, questionnaire responses,
Nice.
online as well. And it's reduced a huge amount of flow to the courthouse. People like being able to get that automatic response, knowing that it's been delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we have.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Will you keep that back there? Because I think I'm going to have you raise your hand again, I'm sure. Don't be shy, though. Please, everybody raise their hand if you want. I would love it. I'm better with interaction. I could talk all day, so it'll be more fun if people talk back. So yeah, allowing people unique ways to resolve their tickets online. So whether it's fillable forms online that go to a central email box that can be worked, or what if it's something that's integrated with your case management system and it can trigger a task in your case management system, maybe record the documents for you automatically, things like that. I love that you're allowing the pleas or the hearing requests online. That is popular. A really good way to help courts streamline their dockets is if a defendant can enter a not guilty plea online before even showing up for their initial arraignment. It may fast track that pretrial conference or that bench trial, whatever your next process is there. So a lot of really creative ways to provide the convenience to the defendant and still reduce your lobby traffic, but they're still managing those email boxes in there, which is still pretty cool. Pretty cool. I would interact with that, especially since I got a confirmation. So basically still focusing on apps that allow your folks to have self-service. So we've talked about online traffic resolution, we've talked about e-filing a little bit, but you have other people who rely on you for information, like the attorneys, or even just case search lookups, right? Or the press review tools, or press wanting access to cases. Court documents, making those available online. Does everybody have your court documents online today? I see a couple heads and some yeses. So that's another reason that a lot of people have to come into the court, right? Or they're sending a request via mail. I don't know, do you all still open a lot of mail these days? A lot of mail, yeah, which means a lot of post office trips, potentially, right? So tools that help attorneys and pro se filers get instant and secure access to their cases. So in addition to just being able to e-file, what if they can see more about more on their case? And then advanced tools for law firms. Those are other areas where you can increase access to justice, increase transparency, and even reduce the workload coming into the office where you have to have staff fulfilling these requests manually. So we talk a little bit more about online case tools, case resolution tools, really allowing defendants to resolve their cases from anywhere, at any time. I love saying that, but it's not just about paying them, right? So to her point earlier, it's about making sure the defendants know all of their options before they just enter a guilty plea and pay. Because a lot of times if I walked into the office and I talked to a clerk, I would say, hey, I got this speeding ticket. What do I do? Like, I don't want it to go on my record. Can you tell me what options there are? And that's how a lot of people get that information. So if you have some tools that can allow your website to pre-qualify that person for any of the programs that are available for their violation, and maybe even information about them. How many of you offer traffic school? A couple? Okay. Do you allow out-of-state people to take your traffic school? Out-of-state drivers? I've got one yes and I've got one no. And one kind of, right? If they make it through, they get to take it, right?
We do a lot of camera.
Oh, okay.
The officers allow that. They give it when they mail out the ticket to the person after they take the picture.
Gotcha. Okay, a lot of camera tickets there. And then the officers give the traffic school option. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Well, in a lot of states, you can't take traffic school if you don't have a driver's license for that state. Or you can't take traffic school if you have a CDL driver's license, right? So if you had some online tools that can pre-qualify that defendant and say, oh, you have a CDL and you live in, I'm going to pick on Florida. You live in Florida and you got your ticket in Texas, you can't take traffic school. So don't even show it to them as an option. So being able to use technology and your case management systems and your online tools to take a look at those business rules that your clerks know, that you all can recite by heart, and manage that work for you to help those defendants without them having to call you. So we've got some pretty cool stuff like that out in the market. Making payments and requesting court dates and programs. I think I got ahead of myself. So allowing them to request programs like a first-time offender who is eligible for traffic school or diversion, or even the not guilty plea. If you had a way to automatically record a not guilty plea and automatically set a hearing on the case, would you all allow that option online in your courts? Maybe, I know you do, for the hearing requests, right? So that's another thing that can help fast track those dockets, like I mentioned earlier. And if when they're looking to request that traffic option, whether it's traffic school or they're entering a not guilty plea, the solution should allow the defendant to prove their identity, whether that's uploading a picture of their driver's license. Maybe there's some forms that you need filled out, like an official request to take traffic school or an official plea form, or proof of their insurance if maybe they have the ability to request a dismissal because it's a fix-it ticket, or a no insurance compliance dismissal because they actually had insurance. Things like that, that are the routine things people get tickets for, that there's a standard set of ways usually to handle those. Offloading that type of work to a self-service system is one of the big ways to help reduce that workload and provide that convenience to your defendants. So now we'll get to the fun part, which is improving the compliance rate. So we actually did a study in about, I think it was 2019, so it was right before the pandemic, and we were really testing out our text messaging campaigns with our municipal courts at that time. And what our questions were is, how can we reduce the active case backlog for cases older than 30 days? Because when they're older than 30 days, or older than 90 days, or older than 120 days, what happens to those cases? A lot more work for you all, right? There's warrants, there's failure to appear processes, maybe collections, there's a lot of additional fees, and your case backlog grows. And, you all know more than I do. The longer cases stay open like that, the harder it is to get them closed, the more time it takes to manage those cases. So when we studied the group that we worked with, we took a look at the integrated reminder options that they were using, and the result of sending reminder text messages for hearings actually, let me say this right, it increased, 22% more cases were resolved in under 30 days. So I just tried to say this a little bit of a different way because it made more sense to me to say 22% more cases were resolved in under 30 days. That's a lot. That means those people have avoided collections fees or late fees. They've avoided failure to appear processes where maybe they would be getting a driver's license suspension notice, things like that. So pretty cool. Now, more recently, I actually worked with one of our state courts in Georgia, and when they turned on the integrated case payments that we offered them 9 months ago, this is what they found with their own stats. So their case backlog was reduced by 9%. So these are just cases that had been out there, not being worked, just sitting on their backlog. It resolved a lot of FTA cases. Also, having the integrated case payments where people could see real-time balances from their cases in their system, they were able to resolve 17% of their cases before the first notice went out. Not only that, but 71% of the cases that were paid online were paid before court, before they even got that second notice. So before court, which meant smaller dockets, less FTAs, it reduced the time to disposition, less warrants and overhead. That's just a big process that starts when people don't make it to court. So it's in everybody's best interest to have systems that make people feel confident in using them online. Yes.
Question, does Tyler offer multi-language text? Is it only in English?
Oh, so that's a fun thing. So in the campaigns that you send out, they can be curated in different languages, and so you can set some parameters on those jobs. And I'm going to have to look to see if we can use the same things that we use for our forms, because we have some capabilities for multi-language forms. So I will check on that. I like that. So the campaigns can definitely be designed separately, and it can include some English and some Spanish text, or it can be as long as you want it to, really, but it can have multiple translations in the single text. Yeah, but it would be really cool if somebody could say, my language is, and send that back when they opt in.
We have an option of Spanish or English.
Okay.
I don't know of it going beyond that, but there is the option of at least those two.
That's awesome. I'm going to add to that. Our online system that allows the integrated case payments that this state court in Georgia is using does have specific English and online translations available, and the court gets to control the Spanish translations for all of that configuration. That way, you can make sure you're saying the right legalese in the right language, and it's not automatically translated by, Google or something where it might not be right. Yep. So there is a lot of emphasis on that. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to get to the fun part, and y'all, I did not think that I could talk for an hour and 15 minutes, so I know I've repeated a lot of different things, like use text messages and use QR codes and, do all these things online, but repeating things helps things stick for me, so I'm going to give you a few tips that regardless of what applications you're using, you can take home and implement if you want to move forward with text messaging. So I've got the 3 best practices for engaging defendants. One is to remind them of their citation. So we talked about that earlier, whether that's their initial pay or appear by date, their initial hearing, a follow-up hearing, or payment reminders. Those are very important. The initial appearance rates in the group that we studied back in 2019 increased from an average of 56% in all participating courts to 62%. So 6% more people showed up just by getting the reminder. That may not sound like a lot, but that's 6% less FTAs and warrants that you had to issue, which really just racks up those fees for these people who, likely may not be able to pay them anyways, because it's hard. I don't want to pay those. So simply by reminding them of their defendants' dates with a text message. So when we analyze the shared feedback that we received, the best times to send the text messages were a week before and the day before the hearing. We took that a little bit farther, though, so not only did we analyze the language that was in the text, we experimented with several different patterns of speech to get the most engagement, and this was the most popular time frame. However, we also suggest a few more campaigns, like maybe right when they get the ticket if you have their number, 30 to 14 days out. A week before, the day before, day of, and the day after. So those are the types of campaigns that we are setting up with our clients so that you can continue to notify that person at the pivotal milestones where something less desirable might happen on their case. In those text messages, giving online payment options, actually including the link to the online payment options, increase the number of online payments by 22%. So that's 22% less trips to the post office or trips to your office and your lobbies. And the other thing is to send text message reminders on payday, which is Friday. And I bet that's the day you're sending them to, right? Fridays?
No, but I'm going to be changing it. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, so the best time is on Friday because it's most people's payday. I mean, it's even my payday every other. And so those are the times where people, when they're reminded and it's in front of them, they're like, oh, okay, I need to take care of this and I can today. So that's what we learned through some text message studies. These are the things that we've been advocating to our clients to include: QR codes, sending proactive text message reminders, better than email. Still send the email. Those are awesome too, but I don't read them. And providing transparency in the online resolution options that you offer. And if you don't offer the ones that you think you could or should, then start looking at what would give you the most benefit initially. I did not believe I was going to talk this whole time. So you have 3 minutes for questions. But I love the engagement too. And you don't have to ask me any questions, but I like to answer them. So. Is there anything online?
Have you looked at data on criminal cases and notifications about hearings? And I know there's been some studies. Do you have any?
Oh, on just criminal cases?
Just criminal cases, not citations.
No, I don't have that yet, but I like that idea. So I'll make a note for that to see if it increases their appearance rates. Yeah, I think that and maybe reminding their attorney also may help increase those appearance rates. Of course, the attorneys are going to be there anyways most of the time, right, Anthony?
I read emails.
You read emails? He's like, that's what I took away. They say we don't read emails. That's awesome. What other? Oh, sorry.
Tickets. I was going to say, like, if
if I didn't have a QR code or a police officer that had time to explain to me where to go, if I just looked up by my last name, I knew I'd have a citation somewhere out there floating. Could I look it up?
Oh, I love that you asked that. So that's another hard thing with all of the courts operating differently, right? So no, in a lot of places you can't, Anthony. In some places that work with us, that is something that's starting to happen, where multiple courts are in one instance of case manager. We have a feature called single search, and it will allow a defendant to search once, see the results for that court if they happen to make it to any of the court websites, and then at the bottom they can see any matched results for any of the other courts, and it'll take them to their website. That's kind of like our phase one. My bigger dream is to be able to connect case management systems that aren't in a single location. So being able to check with multiple counties that don't use the same instance of a CMS, or hey, maybe even someday don't use the same CMS, if we're dreaming. Yes?
Do you have any suggestions or any relationships with any case management systems that are statewide?
I like that question too, but I feel biased in answering. So the question is if I have any relationships with statewide systems, right? So I work for Tyler Technologies, and we do have statewide systems all across the country. So the single search is amazing for them, but it's also good for our county courts who use a single instance of the application. So like if you're in the DFW area, I don't know, how many of you have ever frequented DFW? Oh, yeah. It's there's a lot of highways, and there's a lot of opportunities to get pulled over. And there's a funny thing in Texas, especially in DFW, is when you get pulled over, if it's a highway patrol or sometimes even a county cop, they get to choose where they file the ticket. So especially the highway patrols. So sometimes it's really hard to know, especially if you lost your ticket, which I'm not going to say I did, but I did lose my ticket. It's hard to know where you got that ticket. And so the single search tool that we created will help folks in like Denton County, Texas, where there's 6 JPs and you got a ticket somewhere on I-35, but you don't know where and you don't know where it got filed. And then if we had something like we're dreaming, don't tell anybody I told you this, and it's going to be recorded, so people are going to watch it, but I think my Tyler folks left, is, even better of the city courts and the county courts and all of the people in some of our metroplexes, whether it's Portland or Seattle or Dallas, being able to have an easier way to find their tickets. Yeah, we have some other tools, but I'm not here to talk about those today. So just that one. But I like that question. Thank you so much. And that puts us at 5:15. So I'm sorry for anyone online if you had questions. I didn't get to see those, but no? Okay, cool. Does it say my email address maybe somewhere in the app, or message me? I'd love to connect with you all. Thank you for joining me today and bearing with me through this.